At 1:14 a.m., the dispatch screen showed an incoming call before the phone made a sound. That was not how our system worked. Calls hit the desk phone first, then the CAD screen pulled the number, location, and incident type from the line. This one was already open in my queue with a running timer at 8 seconds, and the handset beside my keyboard was still quiet. The call type said, "Vehicle collision, northbound Route 17, mile marker 42. No unit had been assigned, no caller name was listed, and the source field showed live voice even though nobody was speaking. I checked the phone base, then the soft phone window, then the radio clock above the consoles. All three showed 1:14 a.m. The timer on the call kept moving. 9 seconds, 10, 11. Then the desk phone rang once, late, and the CAD record changed by itself from pending to answered. My hand was still on the mouse when that happened. I had not picked up anything yet. I did not answer right away. The first rule on that desk was simple. The call did not exist until a line was open and a dispatcher confirmed voice contact. We did not build an incident off a blank screen, and we did not move police, fire, or ECMS based on a record that appeared ahead of the call. I clicked the call history panel to see whether another dispatcher had transferred it to me, but the origin column showed my console ID from the start. Then the phone rang a second time. The CAD timer had already passed 23 seconds. I lifted the handset and gave the standard county dispatch greeting. A man on the line spoke fast, like he was reporting something while watching it happen. He said there was a pickup truck sideways across Route 17, headlights still on, one person outside near the guardrail. I typed while he talked. The problem was, the map had already placed the same marker in the same lane before he said the road name. The caller gave mile marker 42 at 1:15 a.m., but the incident card already had 42 in the location box at 1:14 a.m. I looked at the automatic transcript window, expecting a delay or a repeated line from some old test call. It was typing his words as he said them, one or two behind his voice, exactly like it should. The older entries above it were not from the transcript. They were already in the event notes before I answered. Pickup blocking right lane. One male walking near rail. No visible fire. I scrolled to the first note and checked the timestamp. 1:13 a.m. That was 1 minute before the line appeared on my screen, and 2 minutes before the caller said any of it to me. I asked him to confirm what he could see from his vehicle. He said a white pickup, driver side damage, right rear tire gone. The note field filled in the same details before he finished saying tire. I wrote a separate note on the scratch pad with the real sequence. Screen first, ring second, voice third. I kept it beside the keyboard because the event history was already changing faster than I could trust. I sent the call to Highway Patrol because that was the procedure, and I marked EMS as standby because a person was outside the vehicle. The moment I clicked assign, the patrol unit list showed Trooper Bell recommended, even though Bell was not the closest car. The closest unit was Adam 24, 6 miles south, clear from a traffic stop. Bell was 12 miles north and attached to a different sector. I opened the AVL map and watched both unit dots. Adam 24 was moving toward Route 17 already, but the system would not let me drag the assignment to him. A red validation note appeared at the bottom of the card. Unit not eligible for this event. That message usually came from jurisdiction or status conflicts. There was no conflict here. I radioed Adam 24 for location. He answered from south of mile marker 36. Before I could ask if he could take the call, the event log added, Adam 24 advised unavailable. Adam 24 had not advised unavailable. His radio was still open, and I could hear road noise behind him. I asked him to repeat his status. He said he was clear and could head north. The CAD note did not change. It sat there with his unit number and a timestamp of 1:16 a.m., showing a response he had not given. I checked the radio recorder strip below the console. It showed my transmission, then his answer, then nothing after that. No one had entered the unavailable note manually. Manual notes showed the dispatcher initials, and this one showed system. I assigned Bell because the call would not release otherwise. The second I did, the caller stopped talking in the middle of giving his phone number. The line stayed connected, but the audio flattened into road hiss. Then the transcript added a line I had not heard. Caller reports second vehicle approaching too fast. I checked the headset foot pedal, the time sync icon, and the active users list. Nothing showed another operator in the card. The caller was still connected on line 2, but the system was treating him like he had already said things he had not reached yet. I leaned closer to the handset and asked the caller if another vehicle was near him. He did not answer. The transcript cursor kept blinking, but no new words appeared for 3 seconds. Then I heard him breathe once, close to the phone, and he said, "No, not yet." That was the first spoken answer that did not match the record. The record said he had already reported a second vehicle. He said he had not. I asked him to stay in his car if it was safe and keep the line open. While I said that, the map marker moved from the right lane to the shoulder. We could adjust markers manually when callers corrected location, but I had not touched the map. The caller said the pickup was still in the right lane. I checked the event audit. Location adjusted by caller input. There was no caller input for that. There was only my question and his answer saying it had not moved. I wrote down the map change time and compared it to the voice recorder counter. The recorder had no matching phrase. The only real information in the room was coming from the man on the phone, and the screen was staying one step ahead of him. At 1:18 a.m., Bell marked en route before he answered the radio. His unit status changed from available to responding, and the route line drew down from the north. The station time on the wall still read 1:18 a.m. I called Bell anyway and asked if he was taking the Route 17 crash. He came back after a short pause and said he had just heard the tones and was pulling out. His voice was calm, but his unit status had changed 15 seconds before the tones went out. I opened the dispatch stack to make sure I had not double-clicked an old event. There was only this one active crash in the county. Then the event card added an arrival estimate, 7 minutes. Bell had not requested routing. Our CAD did not post estimates unless a unit accepted navigation through the mobile terminal. Bell radioed again and said his terminal was still waking up. The route line on my screen kept adjusting around curves he had not reached yet. The caller came back at 1:19 a.m. and said the pickup driver was waving at him from the guardrail. That matched the first note, except the first note had been sitting there since before the phone rang. I asked whether the driver was injured. The caller said he could not tell from that distance. The transcript typed those words. Then the event notes added, "Driver bleeding from left arm." I did not type it. I had both hands off the keyboard. I looked to the next console. Marcy was working a domestic call and had her headset on. No one else had my event open. I opened the audit pane again. The new injury note showed my console ID. That meant the record said I had entered it. I put my hands flat on the desk where the camera above the consoles could see them. Then I asked the caller whether he saw blood. He said no. The man was wearing a dark jacket. I did not correct the injury field yet, because corrections also became part of the legal record. Instead, I opened the incident comments in read-only view and checked the audit line twice. Both times it showed the same thing: my console, my login, my entry. I marked the injury note for review, but the system would not flag it. The button grayed out when I clicked. A small status message appeared near the bottom of the screen. Event data confirmed by field observation. That was wrong, because nobody was on scene. Bell was still 6 minutes out, and Adam 24 was moving on the map, even though the event had him listed as unavailable. I checked the GPS trail. Adam 24 had turned onto Route 17, northbound at 1:17 a.m., 1 minute after the system blocked him from assignment. His unit dot was now closer to mile marker 42 than Bell. I called him again and asked whether he was heading to the crash. He said yes, since he was right there and had heard the call go out. I had not sent him the call. The CAD event then added Adam 24, self-assigned. The timestamp was 1:16 a.m. I looked at the status board above the room and then back at the event. The board showed Bell responding, Adam 24, clear, EMS, on standby. The event showed Bell responding, Adam 24, unavailable, Adam 24, self-assigned, all at once. By 1:20 a.m., the call had a shape the system had built before any of us reached it. It had a location before the caller gave one, notes before the caller spoke them, a blocked unit before that unit declined, and an injury confirmation before anyone could see the driver. I kept the caller on the line and opened a clean incident card on the second monitor, not linked to the live event. I typed only what I personally heard. White pickup, right lane, one man near guardrail, no confirmed injury, second vehicle not yet seen. While I was typing, the live card updated again. Second vehicle arrived at scene. Rear impact reported. The caller stopped breathing into the phone for a second. Then, through the open line, I heard tires on wet pavement and one hard horn blast. After that, the man said there was a car coming up too fast behind the pickup. I did not send that note over the air. I watched the caller ID box instead, because it had started filling in a name field that had been blank since the first ring. The name appeared letter by letter, then stopped before the last two letters. At 1:21 a.m., the event log showed rear impact confirmed before I transmitted anything over the radio, and before the sound of the collision fully reached my headset. I kept the caller on the line and did not relay the update because the procedure was clear: confirm by voice first, then act. The caller said a car was coming up too fast behind the pickup, and then I heard the impact. A second later, a short, heavy sound followed by tire noise. The system already displayed both vehicles positioned clean on the shoulder, as if they had been moved there earlier. I asked the caller to describe exactly where the vehicles were right now. He said the pickup was still blocking the right lane, and the second car was angled behind it. That did not match the map. I opened the change history and saw location adjusted by caller input. I had not received any correction like that, and the audio replay confirmed there was no mention of movement. At 1:22 a.m., Medic 3 appeared in the unit list as assigned and en route without any tone being sent and without any voice dispatch from my console. I checked the radio activity strip and confirmed there had been no outgoing transmission to EMS. I called them directly and asked who assigned the call. The driver said it came through automatically on their tablet with injury confirmed, marked as a priority response. I looked back at the event card and saw the same injury field, bleeding left arm, still present without any confirmation from the caller. On my second screen, my clean record still showed no confirmed injury. I asked the caller again to look closely and tell me if he could see any blood or if the driver had gone down. He said the man was standing and holding his arm close, but he could not see any blood. While he was answering, the event added patient down as a confirmed status. At 1:23 a.m., the unit statuses began to show conflicting states at the same time. Not just delays or early entries, but parallel versions that did not match each other. The wall board above the room showed Bell responding and Medic 3 en route, which matched what I had heard. The event card showed Bell responding, Medic 3 already on scene, and Adam 24 listed twice, once as unavailable and once as self-assigned to the same incident. I opened Adam 24's GPS trail and saw his unit had already turned onto Route 17 and was moving north at speed. I called him and asked for a visual update. He said he could see headlights ahead, but had not reached the vehicles yet. The event log immediately added officer on scene with the current timestamp. That did not match his position or his voice. At 1:24 a.m., the caller stopped speaking for several seconds while the line remained open, and I could hear only wind and distant traffic through the connection. The transcript cursor continued blinking with no new words appearing, but the event card added a note stating driver not moving. I had not heard that from the caller, and it did not match the last thing he had said. I asked him directly if the driver was moving, or if anything had changed. He answered that the man was still standing by the guardrail and had not gone down. I replayed the last portion of the call through the buffer and confirmed there was no statement about the driver being on the ground. I attempted to flag the entry for review, but the system returned a confirmation message instead, stating the information had been verified. At 1:25 a.m., Adam 24 radioed that he was pulling up to the vehicles, and I marked his arrival on my clean card the moment I heard his voice. The live event already had officer on scene, logged at 1:23 a.m., 2 minutes earlier than his actual arrival. I asked him to describe exactly what he was seeing as he stepped out. He said both vehicles were still in the right lane, not on the shoulder, and traffic was slowing behind them. That matched everything the caller had been telling me. The map still showed both vehicles fully off the roadway, aligned on the shoulder as if the scene had already been cleared. I asked Adam 24 to confirm the driver's condition before approaching. He said the driver was standing near the guardrail and holding his arm close, but not on the ground. The event still listed patient down and bleeding controlled. I did not correct the live record. I kept both versions side by side. At 1:26 a.m., Medic 3 radioed that they were 1 minute out, and I acknowledged them without updating the live event. Before they finished speaking, the event log added EMS on scene with a timestamp matching the current minute. I checked the radio strip again to confirm there had been no earlier arrival call. There was none. I asked Adam 24 if he could see the ambulance approaching. He said he could not, that he was still the only unit at the location. The The system did not change the EMS status. It held them as on scene and added patient contact made. I had not heard Adam 24 approach the driver yet. I asked him if he had reached the driver. He said he was just stepping out of his unit and had not made contact yet. The event continued updating ahead of every confirmed action. At 1:27 a.m., the event added driver seated on ground and arm bleeding, controlled without any corresponding radio traffic or caller update. I asked Adam 24 again to describe the driver's position. He said the man was still upright and leaning against the guardrail, not seated and not on the ground. He had not yet assessed the injury closely. I opened the audit panel again and checked each new entry as it appeared. Every line showed my console ID as the source, even though my hands were off the keyboard and I had not entered anything. I checked the input log for any system activity tied to my station. There were no keystrokes or clicks recorded for those entries. The system was continuing to write under my ID without any physical input from me. At 1:28 a.m., Medic 3 radioed that they had arrived on scene, and their voice confirmed their position behind the vehicles. I marked their arrival on my clean record based on that transmission. The live event showed EMS on scene at 1:26 a.m. and patient contact made at the same time. I asked Medic 3 to confirm the patient's condition as they approached. They said the driver was still standing, leaning against the guardrail and holding his arm close, with no visible bleeding. That did not match the event record, which still showed bleeding controlled and patient previously down. I asked them if the driver had been on the ground at any point before their arrival. They said no. He had remained upright the entire time they had him in view. At 1:29 a.m., the event log added transport decision made and listed County General as the destination before Medic 3 had completed their initial assessment. I did not transmit anything about transport. I asked Medic 3 directly if they were preparing to move the patient. They said they were still evaluating and had not made a decision yet. The event continued to display transport as priority and destination assigned. I checked the radio log to confirm there had been no missed transmission. There was none. I asked them to confirm out loud when they made a decision so I could log it accurately. They acknowledged and continued working. The system held the transport entry as if it had already been finalized. At 1:30 a.m., I had two complete timelines of the same incident running in parallel, one based on actual voice and one generated ahead of it by the system. I compared both records line by line. Every entry in the live event appeared 1 to 2 minutes before it was confirmed by the caller or units on scene. I stopped trying to correct the live record and focused only on logging what I could verify in real time on my second screen. The system continued updating independently, maintaining the same lead over every action and every report. I watched the timestamps as they appeared and then waited for the matching confirmation to arrive over the radio. Each time, it did. The order never changed. The system stayed ahead, and reality followed it. At 1:31 a.m., I stopped treating the live event as a normal incident record and started using it as a sequence to test against what had not happened yet. I kept the caller on the line and shifted my attention to the event fields instead of the voice, watching for the next line that would update without input. The next entry appeared under the activity log, second vehicle driver exiting car, and it carried the current timestamp even though I had not heard any door open through the line. I did not ask about it immediately. I kept silent and watched the audio meter on my console, waiting for a physical confirmation. About 2 seconds later, I heard a car door open in the background of the call, followed by the caller saying the other driver was getting out now. I wrote both times down on my second screen, marking the event entry first and the voice confirmation second. The order matched the pattern from earlier, and the delay stayed consistent. At 1:32 a.m., I moved away from the notes and opened the unit detail panel for Atom 24, keeping the GPS trail, status history, and event link visible at the same time. I wanted to see if the same pattern held outside the main log. The event added traffic backup, extending past mile marker 41 before anything came over the radio. I did not ask about it right away. I watched the GPS trail update point by point as the unit moved north. Then I asked him to check behind him and give me a range. He paused and said vehicles were stacking back toward 41. The overlay had already extended there before he spoke. I zoomed in and checked the layer settings again to confirm nothing external was feeding that data. There was nothing active. I kept the panel open and waited for the next update without asking anything. The map shifted again before anyone said a word. At 1:33 a.m., I chose a field that had not updated yet, and that should change next if the sequence continued in order, which was patient assessment. I kept the caller on the line, kept the radio channel open, and asked Medic 3 to notify me when they completed their initial check. Before they answered, the event log added vitals taken and stable with the current timestamp, and the audit line again showed my console ID as the source. I checked the keystroke monitor at the bottom of the screen and confirmed there were no inputs recorded at that time. My hands were still flat on the desk. A few seconds later, Medic 3 reported that they had completed their assessment and that the patient was stable. I wrote both times down on my second screen, placing the system entry first and the voice confirmation second, and the difference stayed just over 1 second. At 1:34 a.m., I stopped asking questions that matched the situation and let the scene run without any prompts from dispatch. I kept the radio open and watched the event log without touching the keyboard. The system added lane closure requested before any unit asked for it. I waited. A few seconds later, Atom 24 requested traffic control and partial closure of the right lane. I opened the audit panel and expanded the entry details. The source still showed my console ID, with no input event tied to it. I checked the keyboard log again and confirmed there were no keystrokes recorded at that time. Then I tried to delay the next step by not responding to the request. I left the radio unanswered for a moment. The system added traffic control, acknowledged before I said anything. At 1:35 a.m., I stopped asking questions that followed the scene and instead asked something out of order. I asked Medic 3 about documentation requirements before asking about treatment or transport. Before they answered, the event log added refusal form required even though no refusal had been discussed yet. I kept silent on the radio after my question and waited for their response. They said they would need a refusal form if the patient declined transport, but they had not reached that point yet. The system had already placed the form into the sequence as if the refusal had been decided. I checked the audit panel again and confirmed the entry source was still my console. I opened the input log and saw no activity tied to that entry. I wrote down the times and circled the order again. At 1:36 a.m., I moved the cursor away from the event window and left it on a blank area of the second monitor to remove any chance of accidental input. I kept my hands visible and watched the log update without interaction. The next entry appeared as patient refusing transport, and it carried the current timestamp. I had not asked about transport yet. I did not transmit that information. I waited. A few seconds later, Medic 3 reported that the patient was refusing transport and only wanted to be checked at the scene. The statement matched the entry already in the log. I checked the radio recorder and matched the audio to the entry time. The system still placed the step first. I wrote both times down and noted the same small delay. At 1:37 a.m., I tested a full pause in communication. I stopped asking questions and let the scene continue without any prompts from dispatch. I watched the event log and the map at the same time. The system added roadway, partially cleared before any unit reported movement. I waited and listened. Adam 24 then radioed that one lane was open and traffic was moving slowly past the scene. The map had already adjusted the lane indicator before his report. I zoomed in and checked the lane status overlay, confirming it had changed without any manual input. I opened the system settings again and confirmed there was still no automated traffic feed connected to the event. I marked the entry time and the radio confirmation time on my clean record and compared them. The order remained unchanged. At 1:38 a.m., I decided to break the sequence on purpose instead of just watching it. I asked Adam 24 for a detail that did not matter to the scene, something out of order and unrelated to any next step. I asked about the condition of the second vehicle's interior, not the damage or the roadway. Before he answered, the event log added front-end damage to second vehicle and rear damage to pickup, the exact detail I had not asked for. I ignored that and repeated my question. He answered a second later and described the interior briefly, then added the same damage detail without being asked. I checked the timestamps and wrote both down. The system entry came first again. I kept the panel open and watched the next field. It updated before I could decide what to ask next. At 1:39 a.m., I focused on the source field and the input channels listed in the diagnostics panel. It still showed live voice as the origin for every entry, even those that appeared before any voice input. I opened the diagnostics and checked all active channels. Only my console and the open phone line were listed. There were no external data feeds or linked systems providing information to the event. While I watched, the next entry appeared. Scene stable, no hazards present. I had not asked for a safety check yet. I waited. Adam 24 then reported that the scene was stable and there were no immediate hazards. The entry had already been placed. I checked the audit again. My console ID was still attached to the line. At 1:40 a.m., the sequence was consistent across every part of the incident, not just isolated entries. The system placed each step into the log before it was confirmed by voice, and every confirmation matched the entry after the fact. I stopped trying to verify individual lines and looked at the entire order as a sequence. I kept my clean record open and continued logging only what I could confirm through the caller and the units. The live event continued updating ahead of that record, holding the same lead time on every step. I watched the timestamps appear and then waited for the matching report to come in over the radio. Each time, the confirmation followed the entry. The order never reversed. At 1:41 a.m., I switched from observing the sequence to testing whether I could influence it by changing the way I entered information. I kept the live event open and moved my cursor to the notes field, but I did not type anything. Instead, I spoke a standard update over the radio to see if voice alone would trigger an entry. I said the scene was stable and asked units to confirm when traffic was fully clear. Before anyone answered, the event log added roadway clear with the current timestamp. I had not entered it, and no unit had confirmed it yet. I waited and listened. A few seconds later, Adam 24 reported that traffic was moving normally, and the roadway was clear. I checked the audit panel again. The entry still showed my console ID as the source, with no corresponding input event. I marked the time difference on my clean record and noted that the system did not require typing or clicking to place the entry. At 1:42 a.m., I tried a different approach and opened a new blank event window without linking it to the active call. I left the live event visible on the left monitor and the blank form on the right. I began entering details into the blank form that had not yet appeared in the live event, starting with a simple note about traffic flow. I did not submit the form. While I was typing, the live event added traffic normalized before I finished entering the same phrase in the blank window. I stopped typing and checked the timestamps. The live event entry appeared before I completed the input on the second screen. I deleted what I had typed in the blank form and watched the live event again. The next entry appeared without any input from me. I kept my hands still and confirmed there was no background process linking the two windows. The system continued to update independently. At 1:43 a.m., I stopped answering the radio for a few seconds on purpose to see if the sequence depended on my acknowledgments or if it would continue without them. I kept the channel open and listened while watching the event log. The system added scene secure before I had responded to any of the transmissions that were coming in. I did not acknowledge it. I let the units continue speaking without interrupting. Adam 24 repeated that the scene was secure and that there were no further hazards. The entry had already been placed. I opened the radio recorder and replayed the last transmission, matching the exact moment he said secure to the timestamp in the event. The system entry came first again. Then I waited longer than I normally would before responding, leaving the channel open but silent. The system added dispatch acknowledged without me saying anything. At 1:44 a.m., I moved to the system diagnostics and opened both the process monitor and the network panel side by side, keeping the event log visible in a smaller window. I wanted to see if anything changed at the exact moment a new entry appeared. I watched the process list closely, looking for any spike in activity or new task being triggered when the log updated. Nothing changed. Then I watched the network panel for any incoming or outgoing connection tied to the event. There was no traffic. While I was watching, the event log added units clearing scene before any unit had said they were leaving. I did not respond. I waited for the radio. A few seconds later, Medic 3 said they were preparing to clear. I kept watching the diagnostics panels as the next entry appeared. There was still no process, no input, and no signal tied to it. At 1:45 a.m., I tested the sequence by asking a question that should produce a delayed response. I asked Medic 3 to confirm when they were fully clear and back in service. Before they answered, the event log added EMS clear and available with the current timestamp. I did not acknowledge it. I waited. Medic 3 then reported that they were clear and returning to service. The timing matched the pattern again. I checked the audit panel and confirmed the entry source remained my console. I opened the keyboard input log and verified there were still no keystrokes or clicks tied to that time. I marked the entry and the confirmation on my clean record and noted the difference. The system continued to place entries ahead of confirmed actions. At 1:46 a.m., I moved to the phone system interface and opened the call metadata panel. I wanted to see if the call itself showed any irregular timing that matched the event log. The call duration, connection time, and line status all matched the real sequence of events, not the advanced entries in the event log. The call started at 1:14 a.m., connected when I answered, and remained active throughout. There were no duplicate signals or secondary inputs. While I was checking the metadata, the event log added final patient status recorded before any unit gave a final report. I returned to the radio and asked for final patient status. Medic 3 then confirmed the patient had refused transport and would remain on scene. The system had already recorded it. At 1:47 a.m., I stopped testing the sequence passively and tried to break it directly. I moved the cursor into the notes field and typed a line that did not match the scene at all, stating patient transported to hospital. I did not press enter. I just left the text in the field. The system removed it before I could submit it and replaced it with patient refused transport. I checked the audit panel immediately. It logged my input and then logged a correction under the same timestamp. I tried again with a different incorrect line and watched the text as I typed it. The words disappeared one by one before I finished. I did not submit anything. The system corrected it before it existed as an entry. I moved my hands away from the keyboard and watched the field. The cursor kept blinking, but nothing stayed in it. At 1:48 a.m., I tested whether the system would respond to indirect input. I moved my hands away from the keyboard and spoke out loud, not into the radio, describing a different outcome for the scene. I said the patient was being transported, even though that was not true. The microphone for the call did not pick up my voice when I was not keyed, so it should not have affected the event. The event log did not change. It continued following the same sequence tied to actual voice communication over the line and the radio. I then keyed the radio and repeated the incorrect statement. Before I finished speaking, the event log held its previous entries and did not accept the incorrect update. The system ignored information that did not match the sequence it had already set. At 1:49 a.m., I focused on the timing itself rather than the content of the entries. I measured the exact delay between the system entries and the voice confirmations using the radio recorder timestamps and the event log times. I recorded several pairs of entries and confirmations and calculated the difference. The delay remained consistent within a narrow range, slightly over 1 second in most cases. I wrote the values down and compared them across multiple entries. The variation was minimal. The system was not predicting in a general sense. It was placing each step at a fixed lead, time ahead of the real event. I marked that on my clean record and circled the pattern. At 1:50 a.m., I stopped trying to interfere with the sequence and focused on observing its limits. The event log continued to update ahead of every confirmed action, maintaining the same timing difference and the same order of events. The units continued reporting their actions, and each report matched an entry that had already been placed in the log. I kept my clean record open and continued logging only confirmed information. The live event remained ahead, consistent and unchanged in behavior. I did not close the call or clear the event. I watched the next entry appear before anything new happened at the scene and waited for the confirmation to follow. At 1:51 a.m., I stopped trying to follow the event as it was presented on the main screen and instead treated it like a fixed sequence that I could only compare against what I was actually hearing. I kept the closed event open on the left monitor and moved my clean record into the center so I could read both without switching windows. I scrolled back to the moment where the system-marked scene cleared and replayed the last 30 seconds of radio audio through the recorder, listening carefully for the exact phrasing used by Adam 24. He had said he was preparing to clear, not that he had already cleared, and I paused the audio at that point and looked back at the event log to confirm the wording. The system entry was already set to cleared with a timestamp that matched the minute, but not the order. I wrote both versions down again on my clean record, adding the exact second from the recorder display and placing it next to the system time so I could compare them directly. Then I replayed the same segment one more time without looking at the event log, just to confirm I had not missed any earlier transmission that could explain the difference. There was none. At 1:52 a.m., I expanded the full timeline panel and locked it in place so it would not auto-scroll while new entries were being added. I wanted to see the entire sequence from start to finish without the screen shifting under my view. The call was still visible in the phone system as recently disconnected, but the event timeline already showed a closure timestamp as if the call had ended earlier. I checked the call metadata panel again and compared the disconnect time recorded by the phone system to the closure time listed in the event. The system closure was ahead by just over a second. I wrote both times down on my clean record and underlined the difference. Then I scrolled through the timeline slowly, stopping at each entry and matching it against the radio recorder timestamps. Every step followed the same structure. Entry first, confirmation second. I replayed a longer segment of audio, about 1 full minute, and listened without looking at the screen. Then went back and compared what I heard to what had been logged. The order never reversed. At 1:53 a.m., I moved my cursor to the call control panel, but kept it still, making sure there was no accidental interaction with the disconnect or finalize buttons. I wanted to confirm that the system behavior continued even after the call had ended. The event log added caller disconnected earlier than the actual disconnect recorded in the phone metadata, and I verified this by opening the detailed call log and comparing the exact second values. The difference matched what I had seen before, consistent and small. I replayed the final moment of the call again, listening for the exact point where the caller said he was going to hang up, and the line went silent. Then I checked the event log timestamp for the disconnect entry. It was already there before that moment. I wrote both times down again and marked them clearly. I kept my hands away from the keyboard while doing this and checked the input log one more time to confirm there were no actions recorded under my session. At 1:54 a.m., I shifted my focus back to the radio channel and listened to the units as they wrapped up the scene. I kept the event log visible and watched for the next update without asking any questions. The system added final report pending before any unit mentioned reports over the radio. I did not acknowledge that entry. Instead, I waited for the units to speak. Adam 24 then said he would complete his report once he cleared the last of the traffic. I replayed that transmission through the recorder and matched it against the event log entry. The system had already placed the step before the unit said it. I opened the audit panel and expanded the details for that entry, confirming again that the source was listed as my console ID. I checked the keyboard and mouse logs again and saw no recorded inputs tied to that time. At 1:55 a.m., I opened the report submission panel and left it blank, keeping it next to the event log so I could watch both at the same time. I did not type anything. The event log added report submitted while the panel on my screen remained empty. I checked the radio and confirmed no unit had reported finishing yet. I waited. A few seconds later, Adam 24 transmitted that he had submitted his report. I wrote down the exact time from the recorder and compared it to the system entry. The system was still ahead. Then I moved the cursor into the report field and typed a short line that did not match the scene, just to see if it would stay. The panel cleared itself before I could finish typing. At 1:56 a.m., I focused on the event status field and watched it without moving the cursor. I did not select a disposition, and I did not press the close button. The system changed the status from active to closed on its own while I was watching the field. I immediately opened the audit panel and looked at the new entry. It showed event closed by my console ID with the current timestamp. I checked the input log again, scrolling through the exact second where the change occurred. There were no keystrokes, no clicks, and no system inputs tied to my session. I then moved the cursor slightly to confirm the interface was still responsive, but I did not interact with the event itself. The closure remained in place. At 1:57 a.m., I attempted to reopen the event to see if I could reverse the closure. I moved the cursor to the reopen option and clicked once, watching the status field closely. The system registered the click, but did not change the event state. It remained closed. I clicked again and waited for a response. A message appeared stating event already finalized. I opened the audit panel again and saw both of my reopen attempts listed, each with a timestamp, but no corresponding change to the event status. I compared the closed event log to my clean record again, looking at the sequence of entries and their timing differences. The content matched, but the order remained shifted forward in the system version. At 1:58 a.m., I opened a new blank event on the second monitor and entered a simple test note to confirm whether the system behavior was isolated. I typed a short line and submitted it, then watched the event log for that new record. The note appeared exactly as entered, with the correct timestamp and no additional entries. I added another line and submitted it again. The system behaved normally, with no delays, no corrections, and no unexpected updates. I left the blank event open and watched it for a full minute without interacting with it. No new entries appeared. The behavior did not extend to new events. At 1:59 a.m., I returned to the original event and scrolled through the full log from the beginning again, this time reading each entry out of order and then comparing it back to the timeline. I wanted to see if the sequence held even when I approached it differently. I opened the audit panel and expanded every entry, checking the source, timestamp, and any linked input data. Every line still showed my console ID with no recorded input. I compared each entry to my clean record and marked the differences in timing again, confirming that the system had placed each step ahead of the actual confirmation by the same small interval. I replayed several segments of radio audio to confirm there were no missed transmissions. At 2 a.m., I stopped checking individual entries and looked at the entire sequence as a completed structure that had been set before it finished happening. I closed the audit panel and left the event log visible, then compared it one last time to my clean record without writing anything new. Every step matched in content, but the system version was always ahead in time. I moved the cursor away from the interface and did not attempt to make any further changes. The call was over, the units had cleared, and the event was closed. The system had stayed ahead from the first entry to the last, and nothing I had done changed that order. At 2:01 a.m., I left the closed event open on the left monitor and moved my clean record into the center so I could read both without switching windows or losing my place. I did not reopen the call, and I did not attempt to correct anything in the system record. Instead, I scrolled back to the very first entry and began comparing it to the first line I had written during the call. I read the system entry slowly, then looked at my version, then replayed the first segment of audio through the recorder to confirm the exact order. The system entry appeared before the moment the caller had actually spoken those details. I wrote down the exact second from the recorder display and placed it next to the system timestamp so I could see the difference clearly. Then I replayed the same segment again without looking at the screen, just to make sure I had not missed anything the first time. The order stayed the same. At 2:02 a.m., I opened the diagnostics panel again and checked every active input channel tied to my console, including the phone line, the radio interface, and the internal event logging process. Only the expected inputs were listed, and none of them showed any activity that matched the early entries in the event log. I watched the panel for several seconds while keeping the event log visible on the side, waiting to see if any background process would appear when a new entry was triggered. Nothing changed. Then I scrolled back through the event and stopped at a point where the system had clearly entered information before it was spoken. I replayed that exact segment of audio and compared the timestamps again. The difference was still present and still consistent. I did not move the mouse while doing this. At 2:03 a.m., I opened a blank document on the second monitor and began copying parts of the event log into it manually, typing each line exactly as it appeared along with its timestamp. I did not copy everything, just enough to see the pattern outside of the system interface. After entering several lines, I compared them to my clean record and then to the audio timeline. The content matched across all three, but the timing did not. The system version was always ahead by the same small interval. I marked that interval next to each line and then read through the sequence again, this time focusing only on the order. The system version still placed every step before it was confirmed by voice or action. I stopped typing and looked back at the original event to confirm it had not changed. At 2:04 a.m., I returned to the phone system and opened the full call metadata panel, checking connection time, duration, and disconnect time in detail. All of those values matched the real sequence of events exactly as I had heard them. There were no early entries or inconsistencies in the phone system itself. Then I compared those values to the corresponding entries in the event log. The difference appeared again, with the system entries slightly ahead of the real times. I wrote down the call, start time, and the first event entry side by side, then did the same for the disconnect time and the final entry. The offset was consistent. I replayed the final part of the call again and matched it to the event log, confirming that the system had recorded the disconnect before it actually happened. At 2:05 a.m., I closed every panel except the event log and my clean record, so there was nothing else on the screens that could distract from the comparison. I aligned both windows so that the timestamps were visible in the same position on each monitor. Then I began reading them line by line again. But this time, I forced myself to verify every single entry against the audio recorder before moving forward. I replayed the opening segment, stopped it exactly when the caller first described the pickup, then checked the event log. The system entry was already there before that point in the audio. I wrote down the exact second from the recorder, then compared it to the event timestamp, and marked the difference again. Then I moved to the next entry and repeated the same process: replay, stop, compare, write. I did this for several entries in a row without skipping any steps, and every time the order stayed the same. The system entry first, the confirmation second, with no exception. At 2:06 a.m., I changed the way I was checking the sequence to make sure I was not missing anything by following it in order. I scrolled to the middle of the event log and picked a random entry that had a clear action tied to it. Then I found the matching point in the audio recorder and played only that segment. I listened without looking at the screen until the moment the unit described the action. Then I paused the audio and checked the event log. The entry was already there before that moment. I repeated the same process with another entry near the end of the call, again starting with the audio and only checking the event log after. The result did not change. I wrote both timestamps down and compared them to the earlier differences I had recorded. The interval stayed within the same range. I did not move the mouse while doing this, and checked the input log again to confirm there were still no actions tied to my session. At 2:07 a.m., I opened the audit panel again and expanded every entry so I could see the full detail for each one, including the exact timestamp, source, and any linked input event. I moved through the list slowly, stopping on each line and checking whether there was any indication of a background process or automated trigger. Every entry still showed my console ID, and none of them showed a corresponding keystroke or mouse action. I then opened the system input log and filtered it by time to match the entries I was looking at. There were gaps where the event log showed updates, but the input log showed no activity at all. I wrote down several of those gaps and compared them directly to the event entries. The system had written those lines without any recorded input, and the timing still matched the same pattern. At 2:08 a.m., I stopped using the event log as the starting point and went back to the audio recorder to rebuild part of the sequence from scratch. I selected a longer segment, about 2 minutes from the middle of the call, and played it through without pausing. While it played, I wrote down each action in the order I heard it, without looking at the event log at all. When the segment ended, I had a short list of steps in the order they had actually happened. Then I looked back at the event log and found the same section. The content matched exactly, but the order and time was shifted forward in the system version. I marked each pair of entries with their respective timestamps and compared them to the differences I had already recorded. The pattern held across the entire segment. At 2:09 a.m., I stopped writing again and placed both hands away from the desk so I would not interact with anything by mistake. I looked at the two records side by side without replaying any audio or opening any panels. I read the system log from top to bottom, then read my clean record in the order the events had actually happened. The sequences matched in content every time, but the system version was always ahead by the same small interval. I did not try to correct the system record or adjust my own notes. I just confirmed the difference again by checking a few timestamps at random and comparing them to the audio recorder. The result did not change. The order was fixed. At 2:10 a.m., I closed my clean record and left only the system event visible on the screen, so there was nothing else to compare it against. I did not reopen the call, and I did not attempt to change any of the entries. I moved the cursor to the logout option and paused for a moment before clicking it. Then I checked the last line in the event log one more time and wrote down the exact timestamp from the screen. Then I logged out. The console cleared, the interface disappeared, and the login window came up like it always does at the end of a shift. I did not touch the keyboard after that. I just sat there and looked at the screen for a few seconds without moving. Then the system refreshed on its own without any input, and the event window appeared again in the background behind the login prompt. The same call was still open. The last entry was still there, but the timestamp on that entry had already moved forward past 2:10 a.m. I did not log back in. The city is quiet now. You should be too.